You are watching Zu viel Hitze.
Hello, this is Zu viel Hitze. And welcome to our Sunday night clown show. This is Single Sunday. Don't want to waste any time, and we are starting out with the worst singles of this week. First, we have Big Time Rush featuring MAFFIO. Now, the unholy Nickelodeon boy band Frankenstein Big Time Rush that you probably remember from the late 2000s, early 2010s are back with a single with MAFFIO. He's an artist from the Dominican Republic. This track is actually a reggaeton tune, believe it or not. It's as obnoxious as you imagine it. It has an annoying lead melody, it has super featureless instrumentation, it has played out sounds, and hearing Big Time Rush singing Spanish is really something I did not need. I need you in my life esta noche.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
No, thank you. Next up we have one of the Angry Birds, Blake Shelton.
I believe it's one of the Angry Birds.
And I really wonder at this point, what am I doing with my life and reviewing a Blake Shelton single? But, you know, maybe it's gonna get some clicks. I don't need to tell you that this Blake Shelton track is probably not for you. And unfortunately, it's not even like fun or corny in a bad way. It's just literally what it says on the tin. It's super played out pop country with all the twang and yeehaw and cross and loving Jesus that you would expect from Blake Shelton. It's really not for me. Next up might be a controversial one. We have Chief Keef, Chief So. This track really flopped for me, and I don't know, I do like some drill songs, but this one is just boring me to tears, and the constant repetition of Chief So, Chief So, Chief So. It's going to put me in a coma if I keep on listening to that track. Next up we have DMAS, I Don't Need to Hide. This band started out as a pretty promising Brit pop band, but what went wrong? This new track over here sounds way overproduced, very bloated and almost symphonic kind of pop rock that sounds like Imagine Dragons, especially the chorus, and that really is not a compliment. With a track like this, you probably do need to hide. Next up, we have Germany's arguably most fun metalcore project. We have Electric Callboy with Hurrikan. Unfortunately, that track really did not do it for me. I like some Electric Callboy, but here they are doing a pop schlager parody that is not any better than the music that they are parodying. The track is mercifully quite short, and it has a breakdown around the 1 minute mark, but that still doesn't make it a good track. It's just some really bad pop schlager mixed with some very mediocre metalcore at the end. Oh boy! Next up we have MACKLEMORE featuring Windsor. Now, who the heck is Windsor anyway? This track is awful. It sounds like a car commercial. Windsor sounds... Again, who is Windsor? Sounds like Mr. Banana Hammock Ed Sheeran himself. I guess we really couldn't afford the original here, but honestly it really doesn't make a huge difference because he sounds just as awful as Ed Sheeran. At least the chorus is self-aware, gotta give him that. You get on my nerves, indeed. Next up we have German rapper SHINDY with Mami Freestyle, and if the title didn't already scare you away, then let me tell you, this track is really bad. It's a very uninspired beat, god-awful lyrics, bad cover artwork, bad overall. Next up we have a track that I missed last week by SLIPKNOT, it's Yen. SLIPKNOT recently has been releasing a couple of singles, you know, teasing their upcoming record. Most of them I actually quite liked, but this new one, Yen over here, SLIPKNOT, more like SKYPNOT. It sounds way too stone sour for me, but like the bad kind of stone sour. SLIPKNOT and ballads are always kind of risky. Snuff and Vermilion Part 1 are quite good, but Killbop on the other hand is really not that good. And this one over here, Yen, has to be one of the worst. I guess the instrumentation in the verses is kinda nice, but Corey's almost whispered, whiny vocals really don't work with that. The chorus melody, not only the melody, the whole chorus is just pretty awful. The I die for you! Really bad post-grunge vibes for me, and it's really not my cup of tea. The second, more aggressive half of the track works a little better though, so please give me more of that and just leave the post-grunge stone sour things out of my SLIPKNOT, thank you. Oh, then next up we have SPORTSFREUNDE STILLER. Ich remix of Schlechte Zeiten. Remember SPORTSFREUNDE STILLER? Yeah, I also wished I forgot about them. How tone deaf do you have to be to release a song like this in times like these? This song reeks of privilege, and on top of that, it's also a pretty bad song. The lyrics are laughably bad, run-of-the-mill, and the instrumentation is boring as hell, and I'm glad I only listened to this track like twice, and now I can maybe hopefully erase it from my mind. Next up, we're talking about the mixed bag, the songs that were so-so, that I thought had nice parts, but overall were not like the best songs of the week, but still pretty nice, and maybe you should check them out too. First, we have Anti-Flag, The Fight of Our Lives. Pretty average Anti-Flag track, punk rock mixed with pop punk, and it has a nice feature from Rise Against's own Tim McLeod. I am interested in the upcoming record, but not overly excited. Let's see where this record goes. Next up, we have Behemoth, Die Becoming Eternal, and last week I expressed how I disliked the last single they released that sounded like a Ghost B-side. Well, this time it has some interesting choral elements that don't sound as derivative of Ghost as the last one did, but oddly enough, the instruments on this track are mixed way too muddy and low, which is sad because I actually do like the variety they put on display here. I just really wish that the guitars and drums had a little more oomph to them. Like, I know Behemoth can play, like big and epic, and I wish they would do that on this track. Next we have the legendary Idol, Billy Idol with Cage. I understand Billy Idol always made catchy pop rock, but this new one is just, it is also pop rock, but it's just a little bit too generic. It really reminds me of last year's Van Weezer record in some aspects, but honestly not in a good way, because it kinda mimics the more annoying parts of that record, including a very tasteless wah wah sing-along part. I really dislike those, as you already know. But the Been Punching Through the Walls line was kinda hilarious, and overall it's a catchy track, I have to admit it. It's just not something I would listen to on a regular basis. Next up we have BLACKPINK with Pink Venom, and honestly, when I first listened to this track, I was kinda disappointed that it was not an adaptation of Eminem's Venom. They are back with this new single. It's a pop rap track, what they usually do. I actually don't hate it. The verses are fun, the chorus is a little annoying, but overall it's a cute little track that you might want to give a listen. Next up we have German hip-hop star Crystal F with Krankenkasse. It's moody, dark tune about the misery of living with mental illness and how to scrape by not knowing if you are going to be able to work to afford a living the next day, or if your mental illness is gonna take the best of you. And I really love the beat, I like his flow, and the messages that he transports in this track are very interesting. The lyrics are oddly relatable, but at the same time they're not really coming to a conclusion. It's more like he's narrating about his problems, but ultimately he's not saying much about it. Next up we have the new DAYGLOW track, Deep End. It's an upbeat and cute pop rock track. Verses are okay, the chorus is very catchy, but at just 3:38 it already kinda feels like it's overstaying its welcome, which really isn't a good sign. I think the track just sounds a little too samey to really keep your attention for that long, and 3 minutes 38 seconds really is not that long. So that. Next up we have DMAS featuring Skylar Grey, My Heart Has Teeth, also a track I forgot last week. I'm not a big fan of Skylar Grey's vocals, maybe because I'm still, whenever I hear her, thinking about the asinine, remember that one. However, I do enjoy what DMAS is doing on here, the relentless driving rhythm, and at the same time knowing that it's a tie-in track to the Resident Evil series that I've heard is pretty interesting. This track is solid. I've been listening to it a couple of times. It's definitely almost like in the best tracks of the week section, but unfortunately it does not have a lot of variety to it. Like, the beat stays the same through most of the track. I think DMAS could have used a little more variety on that track. Anyway, next up we have DEMI LOVATO's 29. That's an interesting track because instrumentally speaking it is pretty inoffensive alt rock, pop rock, but the message of that track, calling out her groomer that dated her when she was not even 18 yet. I do like the idea of feeling through arts and I can really get behind what she's saying. I'm glad that like such a big pop star like DEMI LOVATO is releasing a big single about grooming in the music industry and about how bad it is of all the people to exploit underage people for their own desires, and it's not something you see a big pop star releasing every day. But again, musically speaking, the track is just average. But props to the message, props to the sentiment. We need more people to talk about this. Next up we have German hip-hop turned raver FiNCH with Hold Me Now. It's a happy hardcore track that hardcoreify the sample of Chicago's Hard to Say I'm Sorry. It basically just speeds up the track in the first half of the song. In the second half, FiNCH is doing a verse that's okay. It's not terrible, it's fun to dance to. Next up we have WHISTON, T.F.J. It's some pretty uneventful drum and bass, doesn't hurt anyone, but it's also not super exciting unfortunately. There's an interesting switch in the middle of the song, but to me those two parts feel kind of disconnected. Next up we have Casimir 1441, großer Junge, another German hip-hop artist that I've been following recently. I really don't know about this track. I like his delivery over a rather unremarkable beat. The lyrics unfortunately are very corny. Ich lass mir meine Haare wachsen, während ich alles rasiere. Ich nehme keine Kasse mit, doch bin sicher am Kassieren. Like, for real, man? The chorus bangs, but the second verse is absolutely abysmal. And whoever is rapping over it, I mean, I guess it's Casimir, I'm not so sure, it doesn't sound like him. And whoever is rapping on there sounds like they got literally woken up in the middle of the night with a mic already in his face and do something with it. And I think we can really do better than that. Actually, a couple of German hip-hop artists are coming up. Next we have Louvre 47, für alle. The beat is interesting enough, the lyrics are kinda unremarkable. I've actually been interested in following Louvre's career ever since he collaborated with Paula Hartmann in 2021, Kein Bock, which was a great tune, but unfortunately it seems like this track, Kein Bock, won't be topped anytime soon because this new one, Für alle, has an interesting chorus but overall is a little unremarkable. Next up, Austria's finest Money Boy, featuring LGOONY. Ich hab mir eine Rolex gechoppt. Yeah, speaking of corny lyrics, here is the Grandmaster, the granddaddy of them all, Money Boy.
What?
Can't believe he's actually in the mixed section of this show. The song is not terrible. Flow and delivery are good enough. It's boastful. There are at least one or two interesting lines, and really, what more can you ask from Money Boy, the legend himself?
So?
Yeah, and LGOONY is also here and does some stuff, but that is not really that interesting.
Wasserflüssigkeit.
Next up we have another German act, MUFF POTTER, der einzige Grund aus dem Haus zu gehen. Now, MUFF POTTER, punk, alternative rock, indie rock legends are back with a new single. Unfortunately, kind of a mid-track for MUFF POTTER. It's a little too upbeat and generic, fix yourself and fight the world kind of lyric. The instruments could be a little more adventurous and the sing-along part towards the end is a little awful. I wish that one was not on here. Next up we have Brandon Urie, aka Panic at the Disco, Don't Let the Lights Go Out. He sings annoyingly high in the chorus and the whole track has an odd Christmas tune vibe. I gotta admit, it is kinda catchy. Originally I planned to put this one in the worst tracks, but over the course of the week I kept returning to it and it is catchy, I admit it. It's unfortunately also not one of the best tracks or anything. Next up we have Prism All the Way, some very catchy synth pop that is a little too close or derivative to other femme-fronted synth pop projects that are blowing up at the moment, like Let's Eat Grandma or Churches. If you feel like you need more of that in your life, give this one a listen. Next up we have funk rock legends Red Hot Chili Peppers back with a new single, Tipper My Tongue. There are a lot of new awful Red Hot Chili Pepper tracks out there, but this one is pretty tolerable. The instrumentation is great, very groovy and danceable. I do dislike the yeah 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 sing-along parts. pet peeve of mine, as we know. But overall, a solid funk rock cut. Next up, we have Serpent with Feet, I Am Pressed. The lyrics on this one are oddly goofy, like boohoo crying and whatnot. I don't know what was going on there. But I do like the catchy driving rhythm on this old R&B cut, and I really like Josiah's voice on here too. And last for this segment, we have the Austrian pop rockers Wanda with Wir sind verloren. Relative standard Wanda track about falling in love and not getting along, and that one really could have been a B-side on the first record Amore. Both lyrically and musically speaking, not exactly super inspired, but also not offensively bad either. It's a solid Wanda track. And finally, we are getting to the good stuff for this week. First, we have the Beths, Knees Deep. It's a lovely power pop track. Elizabeth Stokes' vocals are excellent on here. The guitar is pleasantly noisy without being too noisy. The chorus is very catchy. Great track. Looking forward to the record. Next, we have Daya, Her. Now, Grace Tandon, aka Daya, is an upcoming electropop artist from Pennsylvania, United States. I also didn't know her before. It's coming through here with a bop of a synth pop track. It's pleasant from the beginning onwards. But what really sells this track to me, anyway, is the melody and mood switch in the middle of the song that works really well. First we have this very sweet, upbeat synth-pop instrumentation, and then we have a sudden switch to a heavy synthwave beat while still retaining the main melody of the track. I think that works really well, and it makes it quite an interesting single to listen to. Next we have Deichkind in der Natur. Very excited about this one. Germany's finest hip-hop techno outfit are back and are very angry about the domination of humanity over nature, but in this track nature is here to strike back. It's very laid-back electronic instrumentation that kind of reminds me of Hauptsache nichts mit Menschen from their 2015 record Niveau weshalb warum. There's an excellent Stimmhorn yodel sample in there, which was probably needed because I don't think any of the Deichkind guys actually knows how to yodel. Next up we have Haiti with Shooting Star. Very short track, not even 2 minutes. More cloud rap in the same vein as the last record, Speed Date, from December 2021. I'm really here for that. It was a great record. I'm happy to see Haiti move further into that direction. Next we have a new track from Gene Dawson, Three Heads. The genre bender is back in full swing with this high energy blend of alternative rock and pop rock and rap rock and pop rap. Has a super catchy chorus, great lead melody, and it's just overall a very exciting single to lead up to his upcoming record. Next we have Maya Hawkey, Sweet Tooth. It's an ode to love with some mellow indie folk or indie rock instrumentation that is maybe a little uneventful, but it has a pleasant melody overall that works really well with Maya's vocals. And the lyrics are very heartfelt, at least to me. I enjoyed them quite a bit. Next we have Germany's Die Nerven, Keine Bewegung. Great noise rock. Love the main riff, main melody is a banger. I'm very excited for the upcoming record as well. Next we have OC's Arena of Blood, just a week after the latest record, A Foul Form, which is a great garage rock record. Check it out if you haven't yet. OC's drop a new single, a D&D themed garage punk song with fun lyrics and very moshable melodies and rhythms. Put this one on the next time you're out in the Underdark and slaying some mind players. Next we have PJ Harvey featuring Tim Phillips, Who by Fire. Now this one is a cover. The original was a quiet and subtle track by Leonard Cohen that here gets covered by a very fierce PJ Harvey. Gets a little overblown, but it's like on the sweet spot of being imposing without being overwhelming. That is honestly all you can hope for a track that originally was so modest in instrumentation and presentation. Next up we have Royksop featuring Susanne Sanford, Oh Lover. Great synth-pop track with new disco and electro house undertones. The BPM or the rhythm on this track actually kind of reminds me of My Heart Has Teeth. Oh Lover's instrumentation and electronic landscapes are just way more interesting than that track. Not nearly as monotonous. Susanne Sanford lyrics really complement this track. Next up we have a double single from Skullcrusher, They Quiet the Room and Quiet the Room. They Quiet the Room is dreamy, witchy and ethereal indie folk with a lovely piano melody and a rising string crescendo towards the end. For a dreamy, blurry afternoon listening, really enjoy this one. The other one, Quiet the Room, is a piano ballad that probably wouldn't work for me as a standalone, but in combination with They Quiet the Room as a sort of first part, it does work. And last one from Austria, VOODOO Jürgens. Es geht mir nicht ein. Austria's best Geschichteldrucker and dialect pop meeting dark cabaret extravaganza VOODOO is back with a very catchy bop that talks about unrequited love while criticizing men that can't take a no for an answer and calling out where they get those ideas from in the first place. And it is, of course, those old movies. Great instrumentation, VOODOO sounds as charismatic as ever. It's probably my favorite track of the week. Go listen to it. Now that's it for our second installment of Single Sunday. I hope you had fun watching. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Maybe leave a comment. Tell us what tracks we should talk about next week, what tracks we missed. I'd be more than happy. This was Zu viel Hitze.